Okay, so are you ready to swing into some serious language learning today?
Always up for that. What are we diving into?
Well, you guys sent in a bunch of requests to break down the English used in Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. Lots of fun slang and cultural references in that movie.
Right. So we found this really cool YouTube video. It's called Learn English with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it breaks down a specific scene, highlighting all these different ways that the movie uses language.
I like it already. Using pop culture to teach English smart.
Totally. So the scene focuses on Miles Morales.
Okay.
He's on his way to his new school with his dad, who just happens to be a cop.
Talk about an awkward car ride, right?
Oh, tell me about it. And the video picks up on all these subtle things that happen in that situation.
Like what?
Like when Miles's dad tries to give him a pep talk by quoting Spider-Man, but he totally messes it up.
Oh, no. Haha. Classic dad move. What does he say?
He says, "With great ability comes great accountability."
Wait a minute.
And of course, Miles is quick to point out that that's not how the saying goes.
That's hilarious. You think a superhero dad would have that quote down pat?
Right. Like father, like son, I guess, haha.
Exactly. But it's those little mistakes that make the characters relatable.
So true. And the video even points out this little detail about how the actor playing Miles's dad emphasizes certain words to add humor.
Oh, really? Like how?
Like when he tells Miles, "Don't cop sorrow when red lights," he puts this big emphasis on do, which is something we do in everyday speech.
It's so true. It's those subtle things that you don't always learn in a textbook.
Exactly. Like it's one thing to learn vocabulary.
Right.
But it's a whole other thing to understand the nuances of delivery.
Absolutely. Like when to emphasize certain words or how to use your tone of voice to convey a certain meaning.
Yes. And speaking of things you don't always learn in textbooks, this video does a great job of explaining idioms.
Oh, yeah. Idioms can be tricky, especially for English learners.
For sure. Like when Miles's dad tells him to tie his shoes, it's not just about literally tying shoelaces.
Oh, I see. It's like a figure of speech.
Exactly. It takes on this deeper meaning like, "Get yourself together, Miles," or "Be prepared."
That's a great example.
Yeah.
It's like a secret code that native speakers use all the time.
And this video cracks the code for us, but it gets even better.
Even better. How?
The video doesn't just focus on idioms. It also dives into some culture-specific references.
Oh, like what?
Like the stupid lottery system.
The what?
The stupid lottery. It's how Miles gets into this new school, and it actually refers to a real school admission system.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
You learn something new every day. So tell me more about this stupid lottery.
Yeah, so basically, in some places, your chances of getting into a good school can literally come down to a lottery.
Seriously. That's wild. The video explains that some parents think it's totally unfair, especially to students who've worked their tails off to get good grades.
Yeah, you could totally ace your tests, but still end up at a school you didn't even want to go to just because your number wasn't picked. It's like your academic fate is left entirely up to chance.
Exactly. And that adds a whole other layer of complexity to Miles's anxiety about fitting in.
Right. He's already got the typical first-day jitters of being the new kid. But on top of that, he's aware that his place at this elite school wasn't even guaranteed.
He's probably wondering if some of the other students resent him for being there.
Totally. Speaking of Miles's anxieties,
the
video also breaks down his line, "I know these kids," which seems pretty straightforward on the surface.
You're right.
But it actually reveals a lot about what's going on in his head.
Oh, totally. It's like he's trying to convince himself that he can handle this new environment.
It reminds me of when I moved to a new city.
Oh, yeah.
And started a new job. I remember walking into the office on my first day thinking, okay, I can do this. I can talk to these people, but deep down I was terrified.
It's those feelings of vulnerability that make Miles so relatable.
Absolutely. We've all been there. And the movie does a brilliant job of capturing those feelings. And you're right. It's not just the words themselves, but the way the actor delivers them that adds so much depth.
Exactly. Those subtle cues, the tone of voice, the facial expressions, those all convey so much emotion.
It's like a whole other language.
It really is. And this video also touches on the importance of nonverbal communication.
Oh, yeah. We often overlook that.
Which is funny because it's just as important as verbal communication. Remember when Miles's dad tells him to tie his shoes? That simple phrase can take on a totally different meaning depending on his tone of voice and body language.
Oh, for sure. Like if he says it with a playful nudge and a wink, it's just a lighthearted reminder. But if he says it with a sigh and a shake of his head, it suddenly becomes a lecture on responsibility.
Exactly. Context is key.
Right.
And this video does a phenomenal job of highlighting how those subtle cues can completely change how a message is received.
It's amazing what you can learn from just one scene when you really break it down like that.
It's true, right? Like sometimes you can pick up on what someone's feeling even if they don't say a word.
Exactly. And it makes you realize how much we rely on nonverbal cues to understand each other.
Totally. It's like we're all speaking this secret language of facial expressions and body language.
In a way. I guess we are. But it's fascinating though, right?
Oh, totally. And what's really cool is how this one scene from Spider-Man has sparked this whole conversation about language learning.
It really goes to show how much thought goes into making movies, even animated ones like this.
For sure. Like the filmmakers could have just thrown in some random lines of dialogue.
Right.
But they didn't. They chose their words carefully to create this multi-layered experience for the audience.
Absolutely. They're telling a story, but they're also using language in really creative ways.
Exactly. So for our listeners out there who are trying to learn English, what's the big takeaway here? What do you hope they get from this deep dive? I'd say the biggest thing is that learning a language doesn't have to be a chore.
Right.
You don't have to be stuck in a classroom with a textbook.
It can be fun.
Exactly. You can learn from movies, you can learn from music, you could even learn from comic books.
It's true. And Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse is a perfect example of that.
It's like having a superpower, the ability to learn English from watching a movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So next time you're watching something or listening to music, pay attention to the language. You might be surprised by what you pick up.
Absolutely. Keep your ears open and have fun with it.
I love that. All right, folks, that's it for today's deep dive.
Till next time.
I'll catch you in the next one.